The Simpsons has been on the air for over 30 years, but it's not just the quirky family antics or satirical humor that keeps people talking. It's the show's uncanny ability to predict the future. From political events to technological advancements, some of the predictions made by The Simpsons feel so accurate, it's hard not to wonder, how did they know? Today, we're looking at some of the most jaw-dropping moments where The Simpsons seem to see the future, and what that might mean for us. Let's start with one of the most famous predictions, the election of Donald Trump. In the 2000 episode, Bart to the Future, Lisa Simpson becomes the U.S. president, inheriting a country in financial ruin after President Trump's term. At the time, it was a joke. Donald Trump was a businessman and TV personality, not a political figure. But just 16 years later, in 2016, Trump was elected the 45th President of the United States. How could a cartoon, years before it even seemed possible, foresee this? Was it a coincidence, or was there something more? The show didn't just stop with politics. In 1995, The Simpsons aired an episode called Lisa's Wedding, which featured a futuristic world where people wore wristwatches that allowed them to talk to each other. This was long before the concept of smartwatches existed. It wasn't until 2015, when Apple released the Apple Watch, that this idea became a reality. It wasn't just a guess. This was a clear vision of what technology could become, down to the details. It makes you wonder how a cartoon in the 90s could so accurately predict the tech of the future. But it doesn't stop there. In 1998, during an episode where Homer is seen writing a complicated formula on a chalkboard, fans noticed something strange. The equation closely resembled the Higgs boson mass equation, which scientists wouldn't confirm until 2012. The Higgs boson is a fundamental particle, and its discovery was a huge deal in the scientific community. For The Simpsons to depict something so closely related to a scientific breakthrough years before it happened feels more like foresight than coincidence. How did they get this right? Then there's the prediction that got people talking about big corporations and mergers. In 1998, The Simpsons aired an episode where the 20th Century Fox logo was shown with a label that read, "A division of Walt Disney Co." At the time, it seemed like a throwaway joke. But in 2017, Disney actually bought 20th Century Fox. This wasn't just a lucky guess. This was a prediction of a major business move that seemed impossible at the time. The show didn't just predict the merger, it nailed the details, down to the exact company involved. Another famous prediction happened in 2014 when The Simpsons aired an episode that showed a dragon destroying a city. This scene was eerily similar to the destruction in Game of Thrones when Daenerys Targaryen burns down King's Landing years later. It wasn't just a generic dragon attack, it mirrored a specific plot point in Game of Thrones with striking accuracy. Fans couldn't help but point out how The Simpsons seemed to predict the course of an entire show, including its most iconic moments. Then there's the 2013 episode where The Simpsons predicted a flu outbreak that resembled the COVID-19 pandemic. The show depicted a fictional flu, the Osaka flu, spreading rapidly across Springfield. While the names and exact details didn't match, the visual similarities were undeniable. In 2020, when the world was faced with the real COVID-19 crisis, people couldn't help but notice how closely the episode mirrored what was happening in real life. Was it just a coincidence that a cartoon from 2013 seemed to capture the essence of a global pandemic years before it happened? The Simpsons has also touched on technology in ways that feel remarkably prescient. In a 2008 episode, Homer Simpson tries to vote in a machine that keeps changing his vote. At the time, the joke was a commentary on the flaws of electronic voting. Fast forward to the 2020 US presidential election, and issues with voting machines were widely reported. While the episode was a piece of satire, it strangely aligned with concerns about the reliability of electronic voting systems. Years later, One of the more subtle predictions made by the show was its take on social media and the role of algorithms. In an episode where Lisa is shown manipulating a digital system, some viewers saw an early reflection of the way algorithms and digital platforms control what we see and how we interact with content today. Social media platforms influence everything from the news we read to the people we connect with. And The Simpsons was already hinting at the dangers of such digital control long before the conversations around social media censorship and algorithmic bias became mainstream. So, what's going on here? Some people argue that The Simpsons writers are just really good at reading trends. The show has a long history of satirical commentary on politics, technology, and society, and the writers often rely on the cultural, technological, and political landscape of their time to craft episodes. But when you look at how many of their predictions have come true, it's hard not to wonder if there's something more to it. Is it a coincidence that so many of their predictions align with real events? Or is there something deeper going on? It's also worth noting that many of the writers and producers of The Simpsons come from backgrounds in science, technology, and economics. Their ability to understand emerging trends and extrapolate future scenarios might explain some of their predictions. But even with this knowledge, the sheer accuracy of some of these predictions is uncanny. Maybe The Simpsons writers are simply tuned into the patterns of human behavior and the direction in which our world is headed. One thing is for sure, The Simpsons has captured our attention for decades, not just because of its humor, but because of the bizarre accuracy of its predictions. Whether these predictions are a result of sharp writing, pure luck, or something more mysterious, they've left us with a lot to think about. As more time passes, we'll likely continue to see more Simpsons. Moments that feel like eerie glimpses into the future. And while we may never fully understand how the show does it, the real question might be, are we living in a world that The Simpsons has already seen?